Hello and welcome to the Construction Record Podcast. I'm digital media editor Warren Fry. The wildfires in British Columbia and the Northwest Territories are making national headlines due to evacuations and property damage, and firefighters and others are bravely battling the fires, helping evacuees relocate and find shelter and protecting both residences and infrastructure. The BC construction industry is also playing a part in dealing with this unprecedented wildfire activity, and I have interviews with both British Columbia Construction Association President Chris Atchison and BC Road Builders and Heavy Construction Association President Kelly Scott about what their membership is doing both right now and in the upcoming recovery phase after wildfire season has ended. But first, here's some recent headlines from the Daily Commercial News and the Journal of Commerce. In the East, Daily Commercial News staff writer Don Wall has a story about former EllisDon president Geoff Smith's new mission and new role. As the company's executive chair, he's spearheading adoption of digital strategies, and he told the recent Building Transformations Conference in Toronto it's his singular focus. Daily Commercial News staff writer Angela Gismondi has a story about how ResCon, the Residential Construction Council of Ontario, is hosting an upcoming summit on Ontario's continuing housing crisis. This is the third annual summit, and ResCon President Richard Lyle said, quote, "The intent of the summit was to have a regular touch point on what progress has been made since the last one and where we are at. I think certainly the picture has changed substantially," end quote. In the West, Via Rail has announced it is spending $80 million to renovate heritage train stations in Winnipeg, Vancouver, Halifax, and Quebec City. The program was launched in 2020 and it will wrap up in 2025. The four stations are the Winnipeg Union Station, Vancouver Pacific Station, Halifax Station, and Gare de Palais. The announcement was made August 24th in Winnipeg, where restorations will cost $25 million. And I have a story about the BC wildfire situation, so if you'd like more detail after you listen to the podcast, head to the Journal of Commerce via the link in the show notes. We're also updating the Journal of Commerce as new details about BC and Northwest Territories wildfires emerge. Up next, here's my interview with BCCA President Chris Atchison, and after that, I talk to BC Road Builders President Kelly Scott. Enjoy. I guess I'd start with, we're going through this wildfire season, and all the different construction associations are also involved in helping with it because they've got the heavy equipment that can be used. And also, you're sort of a conduit for them because you represent a bunch of them. So maybe you could speak to that and to what's being done at an association level to help fight the fires.
Yeah, first of all, it's really tragic to see what's happening throughout the province, and our hearts go out to all of the families and communities that have been affected by this extremely disastrous wildfire season. So thanks for having me on, Warren. And I think, first and foremost is that, we're used to building things. And so it's very difficult for, our industry and our members to stand idly by and watch things go up in flames as a result of things that are outside of our control. Our industry are very proud builders of this province and want to be at the ready to help in any way that they can. And so in speaking with Clifford Schick, who's the CEO of our partner association in the Southern Interior, he's been in touch with his members. Many of the staff and many of the members themselves have been subject to the evacuation orders. And so this is real. This is happening in real time for them. And not only are they trying to mobilize and be as supportive as they can on behalf of the industry, but this is affecting them in real time and in real life. So they're heeding the orders that are coming from the response teams and from the province. And I guess, above it all, they've got whatever they can do type, let's get it done attitude. So whether it's loaning equipment, repurposing staff, going where they need to go. But in essence, the real work is going to begin once the firefighting professionals have given the go-ahead and people can go in and assess the damage and then begin the cleanup. And that's really when the work of the vertical construction community comes to the fore.
And what does some of that work entail? What do they typically, because we've gone through this before, what does that entail for the community to have to, what do you got to fix, I guess, and rebuild?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've heard obviously stories, the Scotch Creek Fire Department, and we've heard, homes and businesses, daycare centers, schools, health clinics, whatever has been lost is going to need we're going to need to go in to assess, make sure things are safe. The demolition will be involved and then reconstruction. And I think the other thing of note here, and at least with the Southern Interior Construction Association board, they have given an indication that when they are cleared to kind of go in and assess what needs to be done, that they will be, to the extent that they can, prioritizing the buildings and in support of their community to make sure that they put those those buildings in that are most in need, that are critically in need to be built, at the forefront of what needs to be done, and maybe relegating some of those other items that are already in the queue, but maybe aren't as urgent as what needs to be rebuilt in the area. And I think, the other thing that is important coming into this is that the membership and the construction community is also sophisticated in what needs to be built, and facing wildfires again and again, season over season, they can be helpful in not only in the post-fire cleanup and demolition, but we can participate in ongoing discussions about choices of the types of building material and implementation of best practices that can help reduce future impact. So those are items, and we've got a huge commitment within our industry to workplace safety, but also community safety, and we'll continue to emphasize the importance and ensure that proper measures are taken to mitigate against things like toxic gases and fumes, and that can result from wildfire damage. So we'll be very sensitive to the needs of that going forward as well.
Now, we've had, besides this ongoing, and presumably will be happening next year and year after that as well, we do have a fire season in this province, and more so with climate change. We also had a giant heat dome and a flood. That was slightly different, and hopefully not as often that happens. So what do we learn from that and from previous fire seasons that we can now apply to this?
Well, I think some of the concerns when we hear about the loss of homes, and we hear about in our effort to meet the housing crisis that is upon us, any home that's taken away just seems like it's putting us a step backwards in that very important provincial, if not national, mandate to make sure that people have places to live. And so this is a tremendous sadness for all of us when we see this type of thing that's encroaching upon something that we all know is a prescient issue for our province. So I think we also need to look at making sure that people who have lost homes get those homes rebuilt. And we don't want to see anybody that has lost anything go too long without having that put back onto into play for families to have those residences restored. I also think that it gives us the ability to look strategically at how we build housing, and we know that the ICI and multi-unit residential sector has a command on building things vertically, and outside of more dangerous zones. And I think it gives us the ability to kind of rethink the priorities in how and where we not only want to live, but maybe need to live. So maybe people are rethinking where what those trade-offs will be. In terms of going through something like this may cause a change in attitude about where people want to live, how they want to live, how they want to be protected, or how they want their residences to be protected. And so I think there's just some positive, proactive discussion that can come out of this. And I think in the midst of this tragedy, we need to continue to move our feet on what the potential solutions can be for the entire province.
And I guess finally, if members of the various organizations that make up the BCCA, if people within that want to do more or volunteer or help out with the firefighting, which hopefully is dying down now, but who knows, how can they go about doing that?
Well, I think the best place that they can connect is with through the Southern Interior Construction Association, to make sure that that Clifford is aware that they've got interest, and I know that where we see things sort of stabilizing now, and that urgency is over. I think people were coming to the fore to be responsive to this, and now it's get your name on that list. Be aware, both as an individual or as a contractor, that you want to be part of the solution, and make sure that the Southern Interior Construction Association knows that you've got that willingness. They are an incredible association for the contractor community to be a part of. They're very community-based, community-minded. They will work with all municipalities around them to help rebuild and repair what has been lost.
Okay, thanks for joining us today, Chris.
Thanks very much, Warren.
What's the current situation in regards to your membership? How they've been affected by the fires, other than the obvious human, cost that's happened, and what are you doing to respond to the fires?
So the no quick answer for you, but our members are obviously in the highway maintenance, which are in all four corners of the province. They're on standby for emergency relief, ensuring the roads are clear, and just looking after public safety is first and foremost for them, and that continues today. The projects we've had, though, we have other projects that are working where there is some paving going on, where there is a source of heat, if you will. Those projects have been shut down, obviously, with the emergency orders in effect. Other projects are continuing to run. They're not affected directly by the fires, if you will, but if you look at our hot spots, Okanagan projects are by and large all shut down. More for worker safety too. Working in that environment is not good for them, but also the effect of working on a roadside where it's fairly smoky and public are trying to drive by. It just doesn't make sense for everybody. So to keep the public and our workers safe, those projects have been put on hold subject to emergency orders.
And I would assume you have, but not you personally, but your membership has been asked to help out with the firefighting efforts, because a lot of road building equipment can be applied to this sort of thing.
Yeah, no question. As and when needed, members have equipment available, and we've registered with Emergency Fire Services British Columbia. What you need is available. Not just equipment. We'll have water trucks. Our members are pretty well. They're self-sufficient. But when their projects are shut down or there is a need for the public, our road builders kick in, and what do you need and where do you need it is sort of the resounding question we get to Ministry of Transportation and the Forest Service. When it comes to fire breaks, the government knows what we have. So when we have the big dozers and that they need, or excavators, they're available on whenever they ask for it.
Just in terms of disasters, the flood seemed to be one that more or less concentrated on roads and bridges and other stuff. Fires presumably less, but I'm no expert in this. What's the demand been for what your expertise and your equipment compared to the floods?
Well, it's not as demanding as it was for the floods. The atmospheric river was a real eye-opener to everybody, but we tend to forget that prior to that we had that heat dome up there, which wiped out a lot of the forests. And when they disappear, the absorption of moisture that hits those mountainsides, if you will, disappears, and then you get the resulting slides. So we're on constant, as members are going along the highways, checking on them all. They're always looking for where the forest fire has occurred, the aftermath of potentially slides occurring. And that obviously was when the snow and the rain and all that comes, but it sort of goes hand in fist. The amount of equipment needed that was put to work on the atmospheric river was very significant. It's not as much needed for forest fires. It's localized, and there are some areas that you just can't get to. Helicopters and the planes are the only way to fight some of those fires. But should there be forestry roads or obviously public access roads, we would have equipment to protect land, protect homes and residences like that.
And just in terms of the after effects of the fires, you've got people evacuating. I mean, less so Kelowna than Yellowknife, where there's one road going in and out, but there is that happening. You've got presumably damage to roads as things heats up. And then, so what do you have to do after the fact? Like, let's say 6 months to a year from now?
Yeah, good question. It's with Ministry of Transportation Engineering, there will be and the geotech people, they will be out looking at all of the roads to see what damage was done due to the fire. But also, to your point, you have abnormal heavy equipment moving along those roads to help suppress the fire, look after the public and that. So they'll be out doing a significant investigation of all those roads that were in those impacted areas, and then determining how do we rehabilitate those roads back to the levels they were. And that's ongoing, I think, Warren, because due to the climate change, government has already embarked on this process of looking at roads prior to a fire showing up, just because we know what we got hit with the atmospheric rivers. So this will just accelerate that process of now you've not only had the climate change happening, now we've had a fire here. What is the integrity of that road? And does it meet the standards that government has set? And then obviously the next step is, okay, if it does not, what are we going to do about it? And that moves that process along fairly quickly.
Now, the flood is an event that may happen more often, but the fires, we can pretty much count on them happening. They're always happening to a certain extent, and they're getting worse now. So is there sort of a set of procedures you guys already have in place to go, okay, we need to do this and this? We already know this from previous events.
Yeah, we really rely on the government. The Ministry of Transportation is very engaged with the fire service people. And as we get into fire season, we start talking about this in the spring and the winter at meetings. Okay, how are we going to handle this? Specifically when you're out paving, there's a lot of heat generated in some of those projects. How and what is the process when we need to shut down? And how do we protect the equipment and the roads from any fire damage? So it's an ongoing process of discussing it, but it's a funny animal, these fires. You just don't know. It's not one size fits all. We're finding and it moves quickly. So it's having people ready. It's having the training done, but probably more importantly than anything else, it's communication. What do we do? What's the pecking order of who makes what decision, and where do we go with this? And that's, these meetings we have, as I said, in the winter and the spring, really says communication is critical. Not just amongst ourselves, but to the public, the truck driving industry. How do we communicate to them that they're all aware there are issues happening? And then, the other side of it, what are we going to do to mitigate that? What can we do? And that's an ongoing discussion with ourselves.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us today, Kelly.
You bet. My pleasure. Thank you.
And that's it for this episode of the Construction Record Podcast. If you'd like to hear other episodes, you can go to Amazon Music, Apple Music, and Spotify, or the Daily Commercial News and Journal of Commerce websites. Thanks for listening.